Hello everyone, Sientir here with another Rambler for you, and today I want to talk about a topic that I haven't quite figured out how to communicate very succinctly, so I will just communicate it not succinctly. Basically, when I analyze the sexual roles in the society with which I'm familiar, that would be the United States of America in 2018, it seems to me that there are two roles. There is the masculine predator role and the feminine prey role. Now, I'm going to kind of do this in, I guess, kind of two parts. The first one is to argue that this is the case, and the second one is to argue about why this is terrible. Like I said, it feels like an inelegant way of kind of stating it, but there's an establishment of a predator-prey relationship. So a predator-prey relationship, just to be thorough, is when you have some species that consumes the other for food. So I think most people are fairly familiar with this, but something like, say, a lion hunting a gazelle, right? The lion is the predator, the gazelle is the prey, and so there are a couple of important things about this relationship, about a predator-prey relationship. First is the predator's job to kill the prey so that they can eat it and survive. Second, it is the prey's job to not get killed and eaten. So when the prey fails, it is, failing at doing its job of not dying. And when the predator succeeds, it succeeds at its job at killing the prey. So there's a couple of ways that I think you can see how this is applied to the sexual relationship between men and women. And this is very cisgender heteronormative. And that has consequences that I'll talk about later, but we need to first establish a social construct. So the reason why I see this as being kind of the way that things are framed is the way that things get talked about. For example, blaming women for being raped is clearly casting men into the predator role. What do predators do? Well, when they're successful, they manage to do what they're supposed to do. So in this framing, a man who's a successful predator manages to have sex with a woman. The woman, therefore, to be successful prey, has to resist having sex with men. So this is where we can kind of see the Madonna and the whore dichotomy that is presented to us is successful versus failure prey. The Madonna is successful prey, that is the one who avoids sex. Basically, the woman who avoids sex is successful prey, and the woman who goes into sex is failure prey. Versus the man who has sex is a successful predator. The man who fails to have sex is a failure of a predator. So, again, these roles come out in the way that things get talked about. So, woman's virginity is highly prized, whereas a man who remains a virgin for too long is seen as abnormal, right? This is a predator that is failing to predate, I guess is the word, but is failing in the role of being a predator. And again, this also sort of leads to the idea that women are the gatekeepers of sex. They're supposed to sort of resist having sex. They're not supposed to want to have sex, that sort of thing, which it makes no bloody sense because they're human beings. Why wouldn't they? So what you run into is also the opposite, where men are supposed to always want sex, right? The predator always wants to consume the prey. And so if the predator doesn't always want to consume the prey, there's something wrong with it. That's like a predator that intentionally starves itself. That doesn't make any sense, right? And so you have this framing again of predator-prey relationship. And so we can see some of the consequences of this. First one, of course, is victim blaming when women receive sexual harassment. Men can't help themselves. Predators can't help themselves, right? And you don't blame the predator for doing what a predator does. Right, you do not blame a predator for consuming prey. That's its job. When the prey fails at its job, then it gets blamed for doing that. And that's where we have all of this stuff about how women need to act as sexual prey to protect themselves. Their job is to protect themselves from sex, which is absolutely, again, it's ludicrous. What we should be doing, and again, this is the focus, is teaching that men and women are both human beings, they're both sexual beings, and there's a broad range of how sexual expression manifests itself. There are broad ranges of sexuality. Women want to have sex, men want to have sex. Slut-shaming is an unfortunate side effect of this predator-prey relationship because the prey that fails to defend itself, i.e. women who have sex, are failures at being prey. There's a problem in the eyes of the predator-prey relationship, which again I think is the relationship that we have established and is bad. So this is where we remove accountability from men and place it onto women, which is completely unfair and incredibly unreasonable. And at the same time, it denies the humanity of both men and women. It denies men's ability to control whatever urges they might have, and it denies women the urges that they do have. Furthermore, this framework has some other serious consequences. For example, it denies the ability for women to be sexual predators, because I do think there are absolutely sexual predators. There are people who want to rape and sexually abuse other people, men and women. Now, there is probably a higher instance of men doing that sort of thing, and there's could be all sorts of reasons why. I'm not an expert on that by any means, but that is something that happens to both sides. And unfortunately, it gets downplayed when men are sexually abused. Again, they're the predator. They're supposed to always want sex, right? So it's hard for them to be seen by society as being able to be preyed upon by the prey, right? That doesn't make sense. The prey doesn't prey on the predator. The prey gets preyed on by the predator. And this is where we have that framing that causes disbelief. Again, it puts the emphasis, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it puts the emphasis for self-protection. So when a woman gets raped, it's her fault instead of the raper's fault. That comes out of this predator-prey relationship. And the other thing that I think comes out of it too is a lot of mistreatment of people who do not fall into the hardline masculine-feminine gender roles that our society has decided to generate for us. And also people who fall outside the heteronormative role. So you can see this some with how gay men are treated, which I think is very poorly when it comes to other men, because they're being treated as the predator of the predator, and the predator is going to defend itself, and is very capable of doing so. You have all those sorts of jokes that kind of relate to this. For example, the idea that, oh, don't drop the soap in the shower with a gay man because what, he's unable to control himself and is going to rape you. That's, again, falling into that predator concept. It's denying the humanity and the capacity for self-control that all men should have, gay or straight. It would be the same sort of thing as saying, oh, a woman is instantly going to be raped the moment she, bends over to pick up something, right? Like, that's a ridiculous notion. That shouldn't happen regardless. But I think this is part of what has a lot of stigma against gay men from straight men. And then you also have people that don't fall into the gender binary very well. They don't cleanly fit into this predator-prey relationship, and it makes everything very squiggly and stuff. Again, the solution in my mind to all of this is to approach with the full concept of humanity, to say women are full sexual beings, men are full sexual beings, and everyone in between. That sexual expression is varied, and to get rid of this predator-prey dynamic, to see predators not as natural but as abhorrent, and to deal with them, and perhaps just to get away from the sexual predator label entirely and go with something else, such as a sexual criminal, rapist, a sexual abuser, something along those lines, because predator-prey relationships are natural, but trying to fit sexuality into a predator-prey relationship is unnatural, in my opinion, and leads to a lot of unfortunate consequences. Anyway, hopefully I've covered this topic as thoroughly as I intended. I thought it would be a bit longer, but it proved not to be, which is nice for my editing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there, and I'd love to hear any of your feedback and thoughts on this particular topic. And until next time, you can contact me directly at sientir@gmail.com. You can like me on Facebook at facebook.com/sientirsramblers. And you can support me financially at patreon.com/sientir. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.